All right, and welcome to the first episode of Podcast Paradigms. I'm your host, Dave, and tonight we're going to talk about podcasts. Is it really still just audio, and what the heck is this whole podcasting thing anyway? Just who am I? I travel across the country promoting the act of podcasting. I have hosted nearly 24 podcasts and have been on many more. When I had my house custom built, I had a studio put in the purpose of podcasting. I've also reached the goal many podcasters dream of achieving, doing it as a day job. My reputation for professionalism precedes me, as religious conferences have invited me in to be among the first media to enter, let alone cover, their events. I freely share my knowledge basically because I hate it when there's shows with great content, but poor production quality, making it painful for me to listen to their shows. My name is Dave, and I like helping podcasters. So tonight we're going to be talking about podcasts. What is a podcast? Well, let's start off by describing what a podcast is, and keep in mind that podcasts can apply to both audio and video. So most people have agreed upon a definition for podcast. And what technically makes up a podcast is, first, you have some multimedia stuff going on. We're not talking about like a website here. We're talking about audio or video. So you got your audio or your video. Then it gets updated every so often, so it's a regular show. This isn't just a one-time thing. This is something that might have 2 or 3 clips in it, or it might be like most shows, which keep going on and on and on in perpetuity until they come to an end, maybe years or decades down the road. So, again, routine releases and audio or video. So, we got the basics down. How do we let our listeners/viewers know when there's a new episode out? So the way most people tune into podcasts is through using a podcatcher. This is a tool like iTunes, for example. And there's a myriad of other tools out there, but most people are familiar with iTunes. And believe it or not, iTunes is actually not the most popular podcatcher. A lot of people use Zune, and between Zune and iTunes, it's fairly split. And between those two, they make up about 60% of downloads, at least on our shows. So you got a podcatcher. Now, a podcatcher will download automatically any new episodes of your show. Okay, that's great. But how does it know when there's new episodes of a show? Well, there's a technology called RSS. You might have used it in the past for, say, Google Reader to automatically know when there's new news on a certain site. So, kind of the same concept, except we've extended it a little bit. It's a special type of RSS. So what this is called is a podcast feed. So you take the groundwork that is RSS, you add a few things to it, and then podcatchers can interpret that additional data to automatically download new episodes of a show. And most RSS feed readers, they're already updated to accommodate that additional information. And a lot of them can double as podcatchers. For example, Google Reader will gladly play audio podcasts through Google Reader. So that's kind of cool. So as far as audio goes, most people that describe podcasts to the lay, public out there will describe podcasts as a radio show that's on the internet. And some radio shows are also podcasts, and some podcasts are also radio shows. But it's important to distinguish the two. A radio show, even if it's internet radio, tends to be either live or in front of an audience. Whereas a podcast, it has the advantage of you get it whenever you want it. You don't have to be tuned in at a specific time to actually get the show. Now, keep in mind, some shows like NPR Car Talk and various other NPR shows, they are radio shows with live call-ins and everything, but then they're also being recorded and released as podcasts later. So, if you're not confused yet, some radio shows are podcasts and some podcasts are radio shows, but not all shows that are on the radio are available in podcast format, and not all podcasts are available on the radio. So, these are two different beasts that are slowly getting into each other's territory, but they're still completely separate. And to be honest, as a podcaster, I would say one of the greatest honors, more honorable than winning any kind of award, is actually having your show chosen to be on the radio. It's kind of ironic that we've done all this weird technology stuff to make our show available whenever we want and whenever people want to download it, to only go back to wanting to be on the radio where you have to be tuned in at a specific time. So it's kind of weird in that way, but it's also fun. And it's also a great way to pick up additional listeners and viewers if you are carried up by either a local community television station or a local community radio station. A lot of people don't know this, but one thing I'm going to let you in on, a little podcaster secret, is a lot of radio stations are looking to fill up airtime, especially time during the middle of the night. Anywhere from like 10 p.m. to about 5 a.m.-ish is also the FCC safe harbor hour. So even if you use a lot of colorful language in your shows, you might still get picked up on the radio, even in countries like the United States, which is kind of cool. So get in contact with radio stations and see if they want to pick up your show. If you put a lot of effort into making your show a quality that, is of a typical radio show, they might pick you up, especially if what you're talking about is stuff that's not very commonly talked about on their station or is tied into the need and purpose of that station. But getting back into podcasts here. So you got iTunes to catch your podcast. iTunes is not the only podcatcher. It just happens to be the one most people are familiar with. And keep in mind also, another thing to keep in mind with podcatchers is you can actually download one for your mobile phone. Most mobile phones that support downloaded apps do have podcatchers available for them. One I use for Android is CarCast. I find it to be very basic and does exactly what I need it to do, which is download new shows as they come out, put them on my phone, and play one show after another and allow me to delete shows that I've listened to automatically. Great way to save storage is to automatically delete shows you've already listened to. Not everything does that. Another thing is also if you're on a BlackBerry, BlackBerry themselves, Research in Motion, makes an excellent podcatcher. One thing I like about the Research in Motion tool for BlackBerry as well as CarCatcher is that if you plug your phone into your car stereo using the headphone jack on your phone, as soon as you unplug, it stops playing. It basically pauses the show. So you can come back after work later, plug it back in, and hit play, and you pick up moments before you just left off. So I love those two. If you're on iOS, which means iPod Touch, iPhone, or one of these handy-dandy iPads, you're kind of stuck with iTunes. You're kind of screwed there. Sorry. That's why I just don't willingly use Apple products. But if you're on Android or BlackBerry, you're set. So now you know how to get a show. What about finding shows? Well, that's where it gets nice and easy, especially if you have iTunes. Keep in mind, most shows that are listed in the iTunes directory are not restricted to iTunes. Now, there's some aspects of iTunes that are, like iTunes U and some of the educational content. But what most people do is they use iTunes as a directory. So you can go into iTunes and switch through and find a really cool program you want to listen to. Then you can go to that podcast website. So you find the name of the podcast that you like, you punch it into Google, you go there, and they'll probably have an RSS feed or a podcast feed for you to subscribe to. And then you can probably take that URL and put it into your cell phone podcatcher, or if you're listening on a regular computer, just put it into whatever podcatcher you prefer. So there's various podcasting directories out there, but I will say the most stringent one and the most difficult one to get into is iTunes, and there's good reason for that. iTunes doesn't take crap, to put it politely. They want to make sure that you, are, as a podcaster, know what you're doing with podcasting and can put together a RSS/podcast feed that maintains their quality standards. They're not going into the content of your show. Quite bluntly, they seem to not really pay too much attention until it generates complaints. But as long as a person has enough know-how to generate a standards-compliant podcast feed, which is actually a lot more difficult than it sounds for some people, as long as that podcast maintains some degree of professionalism as far as being able to put together a good podcast feed, you're good to go and they get listed in iTunes. And one thing I don't like about iTunes, though, is that a lot of old shows that have gone off the air are still listed. So keep that in mind while you're listening to a show that you might be waiting for a new episode to come out. Meanwhile, they went off the air years ago. So that's your how to get a podcast 101. Now, what the heck is a podcast? And traditionally, it's always been, radio show, audio. That's been the knee-jerk reaction to explaining what a podcast is for many years. But we're starting to see a massive change in the way podcasts are done, especially in the past year or two. So historically, podcasts are being recorded, either a person like me, just one-on-one, or a group of people broadcasting out. Now, if you're a group of people, most commonly what has been done is everybody gets on Skype, and then somebody records the conversation. Okay. So that's the way things have been traditionally done for as long as anybody can remember podcasting. But now things are changing. There's new technologies on the horizon. Google Hangouts might eventually take the place of Skype. But more importantly, Ustream and other live video streaming services are starting to take hold in the podcasting community. So while a show might still be released as audio only, we're starting to see a video component to shows. Even if it's only available to live listeners/viewers, because now it's video, it's that growing video component. Now, I work with a lot of people that monitor the whole landscape of media. And one of the things that's interesting as of this year is there's a huge trend to move away from audio and move towards video. And there's a lot of reasons for this. As a podcaster, I often try to monetize my shows. And to be honest, it's a lot easier to monetize video than audio. And the reason for that is I could take a show and I could post it on YouTube, and YouTube will pay me. Basically, they don't pay me just for posting a show. Obviously, it's a matter of how effective are their ads. And if their ads are effective, then we get a cut of that ad profit. That's kind of cool. Blip.tv also does something similar, and they pay very similar rates. Whereas if you're an audio podcaster, you're basically in the position still of having to go out and find sponsors on your own. So it's a pro and con on both sides. As a podcaster, if you go out and you find a sponsor, you're usually getting $20 to $40 in your pocket when you get a sponsor. Whereas with Blip TV or YouTube, you're getting pennies in your pocket gradually but steadily. So the economics work both ways with the different mediums, and it's up to you to figure out which way is best. But getting back to the whole live video thing, Ustream has a feature where they will record your show live. Now, you can take that show, you can download it, you can do some post-production to it if you want to, and you can upload it to YouTube or Blip TV and make money. Hence, a lot of people are starting to do video. It's more money involved. It's a simple matter of money. And it's also, keep in mind, a lot of podcasters are out there, they want to get popular, essentially. So while we may be listed in all the podcasting directories and be very popular in those directories, there's a lot more people on YouTube that know how to use YouTube and don't really want to fuss with this whole podcatcher stuff. And with the whole thing with YouTube is that you could just hit a play button and it works. And you want to keep tabs, you click a subscribe button and it works. And anybody can figure that out. I mean, people's grandparents are on YouTube. Whereas, podcasting and podcatching is still very much a technology of, the 20-somethings. So that's a demographic shift to keep in mind. So it's really kind of cool. It's interesting. We've started doing that with one of the shows that we host where we record the actual Skype. We take a screen video capture of the Skype conversation so you can see who's speaking when. And we put on a nice little intro into the show in post-production. And you can actually sit and enjoy the show in its unedited form on YouTube. Because with our contracts with radio stations and such, we usually try to make our show FCC compliant and a little more interesting in post-production by means of editing the audio, not to edit content, but more to make it sound better. And we can get into those things in a later episode of this show. How do you make your shows more interesting without changing the content? But it's kind of cool to see that happen. So you think this is a really exciting field. So you may be thinking about starting your own show. And that's great. We love having more people in the podcasting community. Even if you're doing YouTube videos, or if you're doing just audio, or doing both, it's amazing. Now, you may be thinking, oh my God, there's so much to learn. Well, a couple of years ago, and I think this is a story you can learn from. A couple of years ago, we've been doing audio for a number of years, and we had decided, hey, we should really get into this whole video thing. And it was hard. I mean, there was just so much to learn about video, and video is monumentally more complex to deal with, especially with editing, than audio. And we're like, well, where do we even get started? And the advice we got after we talked to a bunch of video professionals was, hey, just start, make some mistakes, make a lot of mistakes, learn from them. And then, when you've been doing it for a while, then sit down and learn the formalities. Because until then, that academic knowledge isn't really going to help you because you won't understand what people are talking about. And that advice has paid off. And I offer the same advice even for people who are getting into audio. what we did when we started podcasting is we got a microphone, we hit a record button, and we got started. And we eventually hit the stop button. We posted the MP3 as best we could. And we learned over time how to make our audio better, clearer, more concise, and just overall how to post-produce. And that's a valuable skill. Post-production basically is defined as taking your raw audio or raw video and making it look good, making it sound good. You don't need to edit, again, not editing for content, but there's dead air. There's, oh my God, somebody had to get up and go to the bathroom and then come back. It's like we could cut all that video out and make things more interesting for the listener. Nobody really wants to hear you sitting in the bathroom for 20 minutes doing your thing. We can edit that out. And that's basically post-production, editing that thing out. So you may be wondering, okay, well, I want to do a show. I don't know what to do a show about. I've seen a lot of shows just, be people's life experience. So, if you're starting on some new, you're starting as an engineer or you're starting down a new religious path, those tend to be very common shows. Just you doing your thing. This show is going to be about, as much as we've been doing video and audio for a while here at the Pagan Centered Podcast group of shows, we're still learning. And that's part of what this show is about, is to help us learn how to use this green screen thing and help us get better at this whole video thing as well. But there's a variety of shows out there. There's some shows that are just productive venting, Hey, there's a problem here, and we're going to scream about it because nobody's talking about it, and here's some productive solutions to this problem. Sometimes it's just elders teaching their life lessons to people. Old people with recipe shows. Hey, if you're an old person and you got a recipe show, I want to watch. I want to listen. I want to have your recipes. There's a lot we can learn from elders. Some shows are just, hey, we got nothing to talk about tonight. Phone in, and they have a lot of people that will phone in, and then those make for very interesting live show experiences. There's a lot of music-only shows, good old-fashioned DJs. And then there's interview shows where, hey, a lot of interesting people. Let's do an interview show. And then there's shows that are a mix of all of the above, and that's fine. And there's also shows that are about breaking news, and it's news that affects a small community that doesn't really have a show yet to cover their news. And whether that be, any minority community or civil rights community. Great thing about podcasting is that you're speaking directly to the audience. You don't have the filters of producers and editors. You are your own editor. You are your own producer. And that's a bit daunting for a lot of people to have to come up with their own content and edit their own content. But one thing we found through experience is that when you edit your own content, especially if you're editing your own speech, you just become a better orator. If you're editing your own video, you know how to better present yourself visually. These are valuable experiences that carry over into workplaces and real life negotiations, which is awesome. And unless you're on the radio, which is a very tiny percentage of podcasts, the FCC is not involved. Nobody's here to censor you. If you want to drop the F-bomb every 3 seconds, go for it. Not saying people will enjoy you dropping the F-bomb every 3 seconds, but you can do it. The current state of podcasting, again, I kind of touched on it, is the live show experience is very increasingly common. People will join in via Skype or via phone. They'll buy a phone number from Skype, and people can call in. Very common and relatively low-tech way to do shows is blogtalkradio.com. So at blogtalkradio.com, all you need is a phone and then a free account there, and you can dial in, and then you can also, if you have a computer, you can control who comes on the show. You can have call-ins and make it very productive. And it's like having your own radio station. The only downside to Blog Talk Radio, and it's a very big and common criticism of Blog Talk Radio shows in general, is that they tend to be of telephone quality rather than studio/CD quality. And that's a major bummer. But if you're getting started, it's a great place to start because the learning curve is all handled for you. They take care of your RSS feeds. They take care of live chat rooms. They take care of having a website for your show. And it's all free. And they are absolutely amazing with that. The thing is, you're sooner or later going to want to bump up a little bit in quality. But bumping up in quality will involve a little more technical expertise. But Blog Talk Radio is common. It's commonly used, and it's increasingly common in use. A lot of people also use Ustream.tv to do the same thing as Blog Talk Radio, live chat room, live streaming of their show, and not just audio, but video as well. But they don't, they have a website you can use, and you can use it, but it's very bare bones, kind of like Blog Talk Radio. So a lot of people that use Ustream will have their own website, but it's also kind of reflective of the fact that most Ustream people tend to be more technically sophisticated and will more likely want to have their own website anyway. Ustream will not handle RSS feeds for you, though. That's one limitation of Ustream at the moment. As of recording, things change a lot, so keep in mind a little recording date. Some people will think about, hey, podcasting is a wonderful way for me to make money, and that is entirely the wrong way to think about podcasting, because you're not going to get rich off of this. Think of it as a hobby. Think of buying all the equipment as buying stuff for your hobby. Do not expect to make that money back. It will not happen for 99.99% of you. Just treat it as a hobby. If you get successful, great. But it's, one thing I will keep in mind and share with you is, in order for a show to basically make enough money and gather sponsors, you're going to need about 100,000 viewers / listeners per week. Yeah, most podcasts are lucky to break 5,000. So just keep that in mind. You're going to have to be doing something really incredible to get that many listeners or viewers, if you're doing video, on your show every single week. Because keep in mind, some people will download shows once a month, and they'll download your whole months of shows at once, and it's really hard to maintain that momentum. That's a very large momentum to have. It's a great thing if you can achieve it, but I just want to set your expectations appropriately. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying that 100,000 listeners or viewers a week is currently the magic number. One thing that you will find very common when it comes to podcasts is that the easier it is for you to make a podcast, the lower the quality tends to be. So if you just walk around with a tape recorder, like one of these here, a digital voice recorder, and you record your show, it might turn out decent, it might not. It's very easy, but if you go the easy route of not editing it, it'll sound like crap. Go Blog Talk Radio, again, telephone quality, sounds like crap. Again, edit your show, invest more time, learn the hard things. Your show will be better for it. And you'll learn a lot from that process. And then you will learn that these hard things can be done in less and less and less time as you become more and more familiar with podcasting. Whether it's audio or visual, it just becomes easier. One thing I will keep in mind is, and especially for you if you're looking to start a podcast, shows tend to start pretty crappy. So don't be afraid to put out something that you're not, even if you put it out and you're like, this is the awesomest work I've ever done, and then, a few weeks later you realize, man, that sounds like crap. Learn from it. Most shows start as crap and they get better. How they get better is they learn from their mistakes. That's why I put it in the intro. Find your mistakes and learn from them. It's exactly what you need to do here. When you're starting a show, few things to keep in mind to not do. Let's start with the behavioral stuff. Don't eat during shows. Don't get drunk during shows. You sound like an idiot whenever you get drunk on a show. I don't care how much you can hold your alcohol. If you say something stupid, keep in mind, whoever you don't want to hear that something stupid, well, be the first person to hear it. It's just the way podcasting works. It's like Murphy's Law of podcasting. Keyboards, be careful of loud keyboards. Most keyboards are okay nowadays, but if you're using a laptop, keep in mind your microphone tends to be beneath the keyboard. Do not type while you're recording if you're using that microphone to record on. Don't do your dishes during podcast. By the way, all these things have happened during my shows. That's why I have to mention it. Do not procreate during podcasting. I know that should be obvious, but apparently it's not. Hostile guests. People are still dumbfounded whenever I bring this one up. Some people will come on your show to intentionally piss you off. Know how to handle them. And have a topic list to guide your discussion. Otherwise, you're going to meander and meander and meander, and you're not going to know where this show is going or what this episode is even about. So, it's not exactly that you need to restrain yourself to predetermined topics, but the topic list will help guide your conversation along when you get to an awkward silence. How long should your podcast be is a decision you're going to have to make. So, an hour or less is ideal. Most people's attention span, even in a car that's a captured audience, is 50 minutes. So, keep it to an hour or less. Anything over an hour, keep in mind, some people's podcatchers in the car, or they're doing the old-fashioned thing and putting it on CD and, putting the CD in their car. Some people's CD players cannot resume a show. So, if they don't hear it in their commute to work, they're just not going to hear it. And to be honest, a lot of people believe that the ideal length of a podcast is exactly the length of their commute. Unfortunately, everybody has a different length of commute. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of research about it, but it basically boils down to that. What we do for my shows is that if we have a show that's actually, like 2 hours, one time we had a show that was 8 hours long in raw recording. We will break it up into 1 hour episode chunks, part 1, part 2, part 3, just to make it easier for people to listen to. It's not that it's a bad thing to record long episodes. It's just a bad thing to release those episodes to your audience and expect your audience to listen to it all in one sitting or multiple sittings. It's a lot easier to just break things up into multiple episodes. Another thing to keep in mind is podcasts are released regularly. How regularly do you want to release your show? Once a week, once a month, twice a month? Some schedule that's weird but makes sense to your listeners. It's totally up to you. A long time ago, like 3 or more years ago, releasing once a week was standard. Nowadays, we're starting to see that releasing once or twice a month is more the norm than releasing every week. So just keep that in mind. I mentioned Ustream before for broadcasting video, and it's an awesome tool, but it's not the only tool. Livestream and Justin.tv also do video streaming. Now, if you're on location, you can do what a lot of U.S. lawmakers do, which is use a service called Quick, QIK. You can get it for free at QIK.com. It's compatible to most phones. And what this does is you put it on your cell phone, and you can record video on your cell phone. So I know what when I was in his district, my congressperson, what he would do is, as soon as he come out of the legislative session, he would go out onto the steps of Congress, and on the Capitol, you can see the Capitol building in the background, and he's on his phone talking to his constituents because he's recording video. But the thing is, it's not getting recorded to his phone. It's actually getting beamed up to Quick.com servers and streaming live there. But at the same time, Quick.com also offers a free service to take your recorded video and put it on your YouTube account. So if you're doing a lot of on-location stuff, that's awesome. Just keep in mind, things are still evolving in the mobile phone video camera space. We've gotten better, and it's just a very slow progression. It's not nearly anywhere near as good as a video camera. But you can get some television quality, which, for the record, television quality is pretty low quality. You can get some television quality stuff for, on Quick and thus onto YouTube real fast, real easily. Not exactly the greatest audio, but if you're looking for quick and dirty, Quick is the way to go. Some people use professional video equipment. And the thing is, that gets very expensive very fast. I know one of the people we work with / compete against, awkward relationship there, they invested in 10 grand worth of video equipment to do their YouTube channel. And that's way more than we've ever invested from day one till today, even doing however many dozens of shows we've done by now. The trick to equipment is really understand the equipment, because when you understand the equipment, then you know where you can cut corners, and especially when you could go to CompUSA and buy something really awesome, really cheap. Like the camera I'm filming this on right now, it cost me $150. And the tripod it's sitting on cost me $10. So it's all about knowing your equipment very well and working off of that. This way you can know where you can cut corners and what you can do. And the reason why I got this camera for $150 is because its night vision completely sucks. But guess what? I can hold a fucking flashlight. It's problem solved. So I hope this has been a grand introduction to podcasting. This whole series is about taking the questions of podcasters, real podcasters out there in the real world, and answering them. This is going to be not a 101. It's going to jump right into knowledge, and we'll come back and cover some 101 stuff as people ask us about it, or as I feel the need to make those videos because we're getting somebody else on our post-production team. So, nice, simple. I hope this has been a great introduction, and I wish you all the best of luck with podcasting. I hope you come back, and I hope you have a great day, and go out and go podcast.